The fun thing about getting a Swiss Rail Pass like we did is that you really get to do a tour like we're doing now. Like we're going all around the country, probably even more than I initially set out when I planned it. So now we're in Bern, we've already been to Zurich, we've been to St. Moritz, we've been to Liechtenstein even. We're staying in Interlaken, and before this we were in Zermatt. So like we're literally going all around, and it's just really cool to get like an overall feel of the country now the first time that we're here. I'm Oskar.
And I'm Dan, and in 2019, we decided to change the course of our lives, quit college, and start traveling full-time.
We're on a journey to visit every country in the world, and if you're interested in coming along, click the subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get into our last video from Switzerland. We know, but the fun doesn't have to end here, because the only thing you have to do to continue watching our adventures is click the subscribe button. It's 100% free and it helps us out a whole lot, so thank you.
This final video will be both a travel vlog from our last few days that we haven't shown you yet, and an overall summary of the trip as a whole. We'll share our reflections and takeaways, what we learned from traveling Switzerland by train for 11 days, and what we would do differently if we had the chance to do it again.
By the end of the video, you should have a clear idea of what an ideal itinerary in Switzerland would look like for you.
Switzerland's public transportation system is one of the most extensive and reliable on the planet. We really have to emphasize this point because we honestly didn't understand just how easy and reliable it would be before we went. However, this does come with a pretty hefty price tag, and buying separate tickets for each ride will quickly add up. Most locals use some form of annual pass or discount cards to make the price more reasonable, and the best options for tourists is getting a Swiss travel pass.
Since we spent 11 days in Switzerland, we decided to get the 8-day travel pass to cover pretty much all the days we needed transport between cities. And yes, it is a lot of money to pay up front, but trust us, as long as you're using some form of transportation every day, it is going to be worth it. You can also choose to pay a little bit extra for the Flex Pass, which allows you to use it on non-consecutive days.
The travel pass includes all trains, buses, and boats, which is a huge perk, and we felt that the peace of mind of being able to hop on any ride without having to worry about the tickets was so worth it.
Alright, we're about to board our first real train in Switzerland. We first flew into Zurich, or Zürich as the locals call it, from our hometown Gothenburg, Sweden. Although the Swiss, for some reason, really like saying that Zurich is an overrated place that doesn't represent the rest of Switzerland, the vast majority of international flights arrive here, so you're pretty likely to start your trip in this financial hub anyway. Personally, Zurich gave us a great first impression of the country, although the price levels here are the highest of pretty much any city. So it's no secret that Switzerland is one of the most livable countries in the world, but does that livability come at maybe too high a price? Who knows?
We stayed in Zurich for the first 2 nights and then took our first train to Sargans, where we hopped on a bus to our 70th country of Liechtenstein.
On the train, we passed by the lake Walensee, and honestly, it looked so beautiful that next time we come back to Switzerland, we'd probably spend some time around this area as well.
Whether or not you visit Liechtenstein is of course up to you, but since we're trying to visit every country in the world, we simply couldn't miss the chance to go.
We're here, we're in country 7.
The tiny country of Liechtenstein.
Liechtenstein is the last remaining absolute monarchy in all of Europe. We then took the bus back to Sargans in the afternoon and then headed down to St. Moritz. Now, this is where we'll give you our first words of caution. The only real reason we went to St. Moritz was because we wanted to catch the iconic Glacier Express to Zermatt.
Now having done it, we honestly wouldn't recommend doing the same, unless you'd much prefer watching the scenery from the comfort of a seat rather than hiking or being outside. The 9 hours on this route could probably be divided among several days, allowing you to see more along the way.
So a bit of a stretching break. Finally, it's like 2 o'clock. We have about 3 more hours.
10 burpees. note.
We then continued northward to Interlaken, which we decided to stay in because it's a great base from which to explore the surrounding areas. Looking back at it though, we would have probably opted to stay in one of the smaller villages in the Jungfrau region instead, such as Wengen or Mirren, as they're located up in the mountains and thus offer A, a closer access to hiking, and B, a beautiful vantage point of the valley. We partly chose to stay in Interlaken because we were afraid that the food options would be scarce otherwise, but as good as every village has its own grocery store and some restaurants, and we were able to find vegan options pretty much anywhere we went.
After 3 nights with Interlaken as our base, we headed onward to Lucerne, which we thought was an incredibly beautiful city, possibly one of the prettiest we've seen anywhere in the world. After 2 nights there, we headed back to Zurich to catch our onward flight. Our last vlog from the Jungfrau region and Lucerne will follow right after our conclusions and takeaways.
Now, this was our full Switzerland trip, and it was actually really well planned and we enjoyed it a lot. However, if we had the opportunity to do it again, we'd make some major changes.
Basically, Switzerland is geographically cut into 2 parts like this, with the north being flatter and more populous and the south being home to the beautiful Alps. This means most major cities are in the north of the country. We'd recommend starting your trip in the north, going to as many different cities as you can and have time for.
We'd absolutely recommend visiting Lucerne and Bern, but other cities include Basel, Lausanne, Montreux, Geneva, and others. The reason we recommend going to the cities first and the Alps second is because the beautiful scenery from the cities will be a lot less impressive once you've spent some days in the mountains. We noticed this firsthand with Lucerne, which we thought was beautiful, but by the time we made it there on day 9, we were honestly a bit jaded. Saying goodbye to this incredible view, don't ever want to take it for granted. Somehow you'll always end up getting used to it, which is such a shame. But that just goes to show how you can get used to pretty much anything, no matter how beautiful or extravagant it is.
Another mistake we made was only visiting the German-speaking part of Switzerland. It's not to say that it wasn't amazing, but it would have been a much fuller experience to also visit the French and Italian-speaking parts of the country. We'll absolutely visit these regions when we return to Switzerland next time.
Once you leave the cities of the north and head to the Alps, there are literally endless things to do and see, and there is no way we can make full recommendations based on the limited experience that we have. All we can say is that both Zermatt and the Jungfrau region are well worth a visit. There's bound to be a lot of Swiss viewers commenting their own recommendations below, so head to the comments to get some recommendations directly from the locals as well.
And finally, keep in mind that once you enter the Alpine region, you'll likely want to get up into the mountains, and to do this, you'll need to take cable cars. These are partially discounted with the travel pass, but are not fully included. Some popular regions like Zermatt and Jungfrau have their own separate tourist passes that include all modes of transports in the region, like the Top of Europe pass in Jungfrau. Getting one of these passes could potentially be a lot more worth it than the general travel pass for the days you're staying in that specific region, so do some research on those local passes as well.
And speaking of the Jungfrau region, let's take you there right now. Arrived in Grindelwald. So we were originally planning on taking one of the cable cars up in the mountains and doing a beautiful panorama hike today, but
I don't think there will be much panorama today.
It's very cloudy and it's destined to rain. We're doing a different hike down in a gorge in the valley.
To be honest, this reminds me of going to the Maldives and getting bad weather, because it just sucks to be in a really expensive place and then the weather is bad and you're just like, dang, we could have saved so much money.
amazing. We want to get to another village today called Lauterbrunnen. There are multiple waterfalls here in the valley, but what's really cool about the biggest waterfall is that it's right here in the middle of the village. And it's really one of those waterfalls where it's like, it goes so far out from the cliff that it almost just turns into vapor by the time that it hits the ground. So it's a really, really cool sight to see. Alright, so we just boarded a cable car heading out up in the mountains
To see a view of it. Alright, now we transit straight away to
a very interesting and cool looking train.
Wow.
Very cool.
So we were invited to this hotel right here, Hotel Eiger, by a viewer in this amazing place called
Muren.
Muren.
And food is served dal curry, basically. But the best part about all this is the view.
And my awesome Oskar Dan viewer Stefan hooked us up with this. He works here. I'm so happy. He texted me and then we ended up coming. Nu blir det champagne dessert.
Ooh, wow, impressive. So how is it?
Oh my gosh, first of all, this is the best strawberry sorbet I've ever had. Secondly, it's so interesting having it with champagne. It's like having like an extremely flavorful strawberry champagne.
Very, very good excursion day, I'd say, overall.
Oh my god, it's been like really non-stop.
It's really been like bus, another bus, club, show, no sleep.
Bus, club, another club, plane. Nobody believed in me.
But yeah, now we're heading back to Interlaken, and tomorrow we have something very exciting planned.
The following day was when we decided to say yes to a stranger's invitation to fly in a small plane above the Alps. In case you haven't seen the video from this absolutely incredible experience, you can click the card now. The day after, we headed to our last and one of our favorite stops on the trip.
Just arrived in Lucerne. I am hungry. So many people. You know, you've been in the countryside for a long time when you get to a city and you are literally shocked by the amount of people out on the street. We're up early going for a morning walk here in Lucerne, and it is so beautiful. I think the most beautiful big city we've been to here in Switzerland. Pretty cool to just be able to go to the beach in the city and go swimming in a crystal clear lake like this with a view of the mountains.
Yeah.
Not every city can say they have that. We also went on a boat trip on Lake Lucerne, or Vierwaldstätter See as it's called in High German, and I think, please correct me if I'm wrong with this, but in the local variation of Swiss German it would be something like Vierwaldstätter See, but I don't know, please let me know if I completely butchered that. But like we said earlier, boats are also included in the travel pass, so we got these views at no additional cost. back in Zurich.
It feels so weird. It's this strange feeling of the start and the end of our trip coming together.
Especially since we've been here for so long. Like, this is our 11th day. And our last meal in Switzerland is back at Hilton here in Zurich. The OG vegetarian restaurant. Allegedly.
Mine was 24 and this was 29.
It was 28 something.
28.70. Wow, this feels weird. It's our last train in Switzerland.
Yeah. Time to say goodbye.
But we get a nice train as our last one.
It's time to fly to Barcelona and then head up to country number 71, Antwerp.